To everyone that's joined us today for our latest technical insight video. If we can just move on, Johnny. Okay, I'm Karen McCormack. I'm chairing this session today, and I'm a director of DWSN and also run the property searches business at United Utilities. I'm standing in for Owen today, who couldn't make it. Okay, so can we move on? Yeah, so the session today, we're covering if you've attended the previous red flag sessions, we're doing another follow-up session just to highlight some of the risks in our reports. Today, we're going to be focusing on transferred assets and future billing charges. Excuse me. Just covering why transferred assets are key, what you need to look out for, and today is with the weather that we're having, a key example of why future billing charges might change in the direction that the water companies are going in. So we'll cover that for you. We will take questions at any point throughout the session, so just drop any into the chat that you may have. We will also be putting up a poll just to get some feedback on how you found the session, and also to understand any future topics that you would like to hear about. So if you want to fill out that poll, just look out for it. It'll go live very shortly. Okay, if we can move on, Johnny. Okay, so just introducing ourselves, we are the Drainage and Water Searches Network. We are responsible for producing the full and complete responses to the CON29DW Residential and the CON29DW Commercial. Those are the two main products. It's the standard questions that were developed with the Law Society. And the reason we run these sessions is that we've been doing this for a very long time. And we just want to highlight and point out some of the issues and risks that you should be looking out for when you're doing a water and drainage search as part of the conveyancing process. So, excuse me, my voice is going. I will just hand over to Johnny now, who will take you through the presentation.
Yeah, morning everybody. Yeah, we're on camera, Karen, is that right? I just want to establish.
It is, yes.
To the good folks, yeah, morning everybody. So you can see I'm working from home. Please excuse any sort of background noises. I've got a fan on, trying to keep cool. I've got a new little puppy, so excuse me if they interrupt proceedings. So yes, Johnny Davey, so also a member of DWSN, and I'm head of business development at Geodesys. Geodesys is the searches arm of Anglian Water. So it's Anglian Water I actually work for, but we trade under the name of Geodesys, for those of you who don't know us. So transferred assets and future billing charges. So I know you can all read, so I'm not going to just verbatim read out the slides, but just give some context and a little bit of background information. So last time we did a Red Flags webinar, it was February of this year. We concentrated on pumping stations themselves, kind of physically, why they matter, what they are, what they look like, what the impact of a homeowner is, and surface water details for those of you who attended. If not, they're available on our YouTube channel, our DWSN YouTube channel, which we'll give you the details of at the end. But today's questions we're going to look at within the CON29DW are as follows. So quite important ones, questions 2.4 and 2.5, which are all about assets either within the boundary or close to the property, and sewer adoptions 2.6, which is quite important, and future billing charges, which 4.5. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. 2.4.1 and 2.5.1 as well, which is the same sort of question, but on pumping stations and other ancillary apparatus. But it tends to be pumping stations. And then future billing charges. Yeah. So we're going to sort of concentrate specifically on the impact of those transferred assets. So that happened in October 2011 for the sewers. And that kind of said, I'm just going to sort of try and summarize it for you as neatly as I can, that any sewers that were in place from July 2011 onwards got all adopted into public ownership. So the water companies, essentially, and I'll say public ownership or public drains throughout this presentation, but of course I mean I kind of mean the water companies now, but they're classed as public. So I'm just going to repeat that. So any sewers that were in place from July 2011 got adopted in October 2011, transferred over. It's vital for people to know that. And the same applied in October 2016 for pumping stations. So any that were known about at that point transferred automatically into public ownership, into the water company ownership. Any that didn't or have been put in place since, their natural status is that they will be the responsibility. They'll remain private and be the responsibility of the homeowner, unless, of course, they've undergone an adoption process, S104, S102, Karen?
Yes.
Yep, two. Had to try and remember them. If they've gone through that process with the water company, that's fine, but you need to find that out. And that's what some of these questions will help with. So then, as mentioned, we'll then look at future billing charges and why that's important. So let's start off with standard sewers and drains, so that we can talk about the adoption and why that's so important. There's some pictures here. I'm gonna have an exaggerated image of each of these ones, so don't worry about scrutinizing the smaller pictures that you can see here right now. I've got a slide on each of them coming up shortly. So this is all about the ownership of those pipes, gutters, gullies, drains, and again, and I won't apologize for stressing it. So any of these private sewers that were in place prior to the 1st of July 2011 were transferred. And if they weren't at that point and they've been put in place subsequently, then they need to have been put through the adoption process. And then on question 2.6 of the CON, the adoption status of those assets will be shown if known. So let's just sort of concentrate on this standard sort of layout of each of these properties, if I can. And again, I'm going to show these bigger pictures in a second. But you can see blue pipes and white pipes, essentially. And I just wanted to sort of touch on how the responsibility works on each of these kind of layouts. So typical detached house. So white pipes will be the water company responsibility. And you can see on this, it's quite simple, relatively simple and straightforward, because they tend to just have a single connection serving a single property. And in that scenario, the homeowner is responsible for all the drains in blue. And then it becomes the water company or public responsibility when it turns to white in our diagram. But generally speaking, that's at the boundary edge. There are always exceptions, guys. There's always edge cases, but you know, we're talking about 99% of all instances. A single property like that, single drain, just serving that property, quite simple. So the next scenario is a semi-detached. So it's slightly different, of course. So in this scenario, they may have a shared drain, which means that drain serves more than one property at some point, and that will remain the water company's responsibility. It's really easy to view these diagrams going from the house down out to the drainage, but I find it a bit easier actually going the other way myself. So it's the water company responsibility. It's crossing over into the boundary of one of the properties just within the red circle there, still the water company responsibility, because that is shared. It's getting used by both properties. And then when some pipes are only ever anything to do with a single property, where they turn blue in our diagram, then that becomes the homeowner's and you know, private responsibility. I think that's quite clear. Okay, next scenario, terraced, just an extension really of the semi-detached kind of scenario. You can see there's a shared drain, the white pipe. It serves all three properties in some way. So that remains the water company's responsibility. So again, just stressing, these are the most common layouts that we kind of come across, but check your plan. Wherever possible, it'll be shown on the plans shown in the CON29. And so this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the transferring of assets. So 1st of October 2011, the vast majority of private sewers and lateral drains, those that were connected to the network as at 1st of July 2011, so a few months earlier, they transferred into water company ownership. There could be additional public assets not yet recorded. All of the water companies, including my company, Anglian Water, and Karen's company, UU, and all the other DWSN member companies, they do not know what they don't know. So it's not cop out, but yeah, if you just imagine everything got transferred to them in October 2011, and it was not always very clear where that everything was. So local authorities, river authorities, water boards, all these different owners of those assets at the time, it all transferred across. All the companies are always undergo a program of trying to understand where pipes and assets are all the time. It's called redlining, and they're added to the sort of company-wide mapping system, if you like, all the time. I mean, thousands upon thousands of kilometers of piping and assets. But still, if there's something that they do not know about and haven't come across yet, they won't know about it. So that's why it's really useful to know if A, the pipes featured on the property that the CON29 is reporting on are adopted or connected, and the maps that are contained. Just check anything you can. New developments. So of course, new developments built since 1st of July 2011, they wouldn't have been involved in that adoption transfer. That transfer of the assets. So it's really important to check the adoption status of those assets, the S104 adoption status. So that will be answered in the CON29DW as well. Okay, conscious of time, so trying to move on. We're at 12 minutes past already. Pumping stations. So a similar kind of arrangement, a bit clearer. October 2016, all eligible private pumping stations transferred to the water company ownership then. It's really important to know if they've been transferred or if they haven't undergone an adoption process, if they were put in place subsequent to October 2016, because if they remain private, that could easily incur additional running costs, maintenance. It could be shared amongst many properties on a new estate, for example, but it could just be the responsibility of a single property. So it's really key to know whether these were adopted or not in 2016, October 2016. It's really important to establish that ownership. If it was transferred and it is the water company's responsibility, that's kind of good from the point of view of the issues I just mentioned, the costs of maintenance, etc. But it will, of course, still mean occasional access to the pumping station on the property. And just pumping stations, no matter who owns them, there could be noise, there could even be smell there. So it's really worth checking it so that you can advise your clients correctly. So the red flags here, we're talking about a red flags webinar. The red flags here are if the response to question 2.4.1 or 2.5.1 on the CON29DW, I don't expect you to remember this, but next time you glance at one, 2.4.1 and 2.5.1. If the answer is no, then check. Check. It's a red flag. Oh, okay. Why not? Why is it not adopted or subject to an adoption application? So, and then if no is the answer, but you think, well, hang on a minute, or the seller says, oh no, that's such and such, and they try and describe the situation, then it could be worth checking with the developer. Check the status of that pumping station with the developer. Who's responsible for it? Because as I mentioned, often they're shared amongst many properties. If the answer is yes to those questions, 2.4.1, 2.5.1, if it's yes and it's public, then the homeowner can kind of relax a little bit in that respect, but they do need to consider that access need. It could be needed to be accessed. Okay. So transferred assets. This is what we're saying is the main red flags on the CON29DW. So they really matter because it determines who's responsible for them. It could impact building over or development. And it, of course, dictates who's responsible for issues around the assets like blockages, or if the asset's broken or broken down or failed or is blocked in some way. Extension work, development plans, all of this is important. you know, and it's a kind of hidden liability, if you like. The picture here is a real one from, again, Karen's UU area she kindly lent, where those assets transferred, well, those assets weren't known about upon the transfer, but they came to light in 2022 because of a call out, and they've been built over already. So somebody, I'm guessing, Karen, somebody did that without getting build over approval. You have to imagine.
Yeah, the size of the pipe is small, so it's not an issue.
Oh, okay. So if it did get approval, but the new homeowner, of course, needs to know that. It needs to know that they are there and that's happened. So new developments, just touching on that again, new developments built since 1st of July 2011. Check those. Just check the status of the pipe work and the assets, whether they're S104 adopted. Okay. So the key dates, again, just a summary on those transferred assets. I know I've sort of gone on about it a lot, but it's nice to just kind of stick in the head. For sewers, was the property built pre-July 2011, 1st of July actually, then they would have all got transferred, if known about. Or was the property built post-July 2011, in which case they need to have gone through an adoption process. So it's worth checking what that is. For pumping stations, the key dates are, was the property that the pump station's within the boundary of built pre-October 2016, in which case ownership is transferred. But if the property was built post-October 2016, need to check the status of that of the pumping station, should there be one, in or around the house. Okay, I hope that's clear. We're sort of keen to drive that home. Yes.
Just before we move on, we did have a question that was sent in ahead of the webinar, so I thought it might be useful just to cover it here before we move on to billing. The question was, if there is an old Victorian built culvert passing through land, which is surface drainage for land further uphill and goes to a stream downhill of the land in question, would this be the responsibility of the local authority? Generally, what we say with land drainage or culverts, they would either be the responsibility of the local authority, or the riparian owner would be responsible. And it's again, we'd need to understand the context before being able to give a definitive answer. But in general, if it's a culvert or a land drainage, it doesn't tend to be water company responsibility. It will either be the landowner or the local authority that would have responsibility. Yeah,
it's a good example. Maybe it's a real example, which is, you know, these things do come up. It's unlikely to be the water company responsibility for that culvert. Yeah, you're right. It'll be the landowner, even though it's only in place to deal with water coming from other land further upstream. It's kind of, this isn't legal speak. It's kind of tough. It's the landowner that culvert is on that has that responsibility for it. And, you know, Victorian times, you know, all sorts of agreements were made, I'm sure, to say, yeah, of course you can. Of course you can build that on my land. So yeah, watch out for stuff like that. Okay, yeah. Okay, great. So next, we're just moving on to future billing charges. Seems straightforward, but it's quite important actually. So again, question 4.4 indicates the current charging method. So question 4.4 on the con, and question 4.5, the future charging basis. So if it's going to change, it's shown there, hopefully. So a couple of things about this. You, of course, for your client, needs to understand the charging basis on the property, and whether that will change on change of occupier. Currently, there's kind of 4 different types of charging. So rateable value, which is let's say a bit. How can I best say this without criticising my own company? Rateable value is based on the rateable value of a property from like 1991, I want to say, Karen. Is that right? So it's a bit bonkers, really. that things are based on that still, but there you go. Or it's measured or metered, in other words, is the next sort of charging method. Or you have a bulk supply charging method, or maybe third party. So third party charging will be things like when a management company owns a block of flats, and all the properties in the block of flats are charged a percentage, I guess a shared percentage of the charges that are applied via somebody else, the management company, and assess charges. So if a meter is unable to be fitted, for example, it's quite common for assess charges to be in place, which looks at the house, the size, the people in it, how much water they should use, etc. So why is this important? Well, if somebody buys a house and they're presuming that it's metered and they've lived in a similar house and they know therefore what the cost is going to be, but actually they move into the house and it's rateable value, it could be not what they're expecting. It could be more, it could be less, but not always. And it's really important. And the reason the water companies are changing the method of charging upon change of ownership is unfortunately because of shortage of things like shortage of water stressed areas. There's a useful website called the CCW, the Consumer Council for Water. You can click on there and see if the address of the property in question is in a water stressed area, and it's highly likely then that the billing method will get changed to help cope with that. All the water company have plans and a big push to get smart meters in place. So that really manages leakage really well. It alerts the water company to leakage a lot more accurately than just reading a meter every quarter or every month. So smart meters are a big focus, and that also helps them to manage the demand. Generally speaking, where meters have been installed, then the charging basis will, if it's not on a meter charge, will change to metered, and so your clients need to be aware of that. There are slightly different approaches to the metering program. Anglian Water, I know, and United Utilities, Karen companies, are installing millions of smart meters. I mean, thousands a day. Anglian Waters, I know, is to get 100% smart metered by 2030. And normally I'd say, yeah, they're never going to make that. But actually looking at the quantity, they've got about 65% done, and they've been doing it for just a number of years. So I think they will achieve that. There are other options as well, just to touch on. There's things like a free meter installation, of course, and many of the water companies offer a lowest bill guarantee. So no matter what option gets put in place for a limited time, 2 years, or even potentially with the ability to reverse it out of that situation in terms of how somebody is charged, they do offer a thing. Say, look, whatever we put in place, we want the smart meter in place, but we'll guarantee that that'll give you the lowest bill for at least 2 years. And if not, then you can if the homeowner's better off on a rateable value charge, then that's what they pay, and vice versa. The key point here really is that current charges and methods may change. They may not be the future charges and methods. So it's really worth checking what the impact will be for the property owner. All the charges are on all the water company websites. They're shared with them, so all available tariffs are there. So check with that if you want to really know some detail. Why does that matter? I've touched on these already, a few. Sorry for preempting this slide. Buyers often rely on the charges as part of their, running costs of the property, and if there's a significant change, that can affect things. For commercial side of things, of course, it could be really important for operating costs, especially if water is used in the process. So understanding how that's charged and whether the charging method gets changed could be really important. Overall, I'm going to say, if the property isn't metered now and there's a change of ownership, it will get a meter installed at some point, and then the charging is very likely to go to metered and smart metering at that. It's really important for the water companies. It really helps them. I did have some anecdotal figures of how much leakage had been detected by Anglian Water getting to 65% coverage with smart meters, and it was a phenomenal figure. I mean, it was the sort of amount per month that they previously were getting per year in terms of knowing of those leaks, knowledge of those leaks. So it's a freight train that's coming, and it's to be welcomed really because of the shortage of water in some areas. Okay, just moving on. And so what we're saying is the key risks in the CON29DW. Key risks. Just sort of finish off. Make sure that you understand the responses in the CON29 and their impact on the transaction, on the new occupier. Scan it for any red flags that we've mentioned in this and other webinars. Maybe treat all the 23 questions as a potential red flag. You know, most of the reports now have traffic light system or a highlighting system saying you really need to know this. This is really important. And without teaching anybody in the room to suck eggs, please don't leave that to the last minute. Some of the things, for example, connection status, to get that checked can take 20, 21 days to get an engineer out on site. And you don't want that to impact your transaction date if you can, of course. So contact any of us, whoever produces the CON29 for that area or for that property. Contact us for help and support. We're always at the end of a phone or an email or an online chat if that exists. So just come and ask us. We should know everything about the answers and the questions and the answers we've put in the con. And then there's just another reminder at the bottom there that over-reliance on the current billing data sometimes leads to issues. So double check whether that will change. Okay, that's kind of got us to the end. So where are we? 10:27. So I think it's meant to be half an hour, Karen, isn't it?
It is. I've just got a couple of questions.
Questions that have come up, great, yeah.
So I've been asked if the slides will be available, and the presentation will go up on our YouTube channel, and a synopsis will also go onto our website. So keep a lookout for that, but you will be notified when it's available. We've also had another question. We're finding a lot of properties that were built a few years before 2011. Some as long ago as 20 years, especially in the Anglian Water and Severn Trent areas, which were the subject of a Section 104 adoption agreement in 2011. The foul sewers automatically transferred in 2011, but as the surface water sewers did not connect to a public sewer, instead drained to a watercourse or something similar, they remained the subject of the Section 104 agreement and seem to have been forgotten about. What should the homeowner do there? Many times we've tried to contact the developer, but they are long gone now.
So they don't go to the public pipes, these surface water?
No, draining to a watercourse. So my view is that they would always stay private, so they wouldn't transfer. Correct.
Yeah, I've got that at my house as a real example. I've got my surface water in the rear of the house, goes off to a watercourse, small river. It's my responsibility.
Yeah. And I would say, depending on how long that connection is to the watercourse, it may be the homeowner, but it also might be the local authority. So it's probably worth checking the ownership status.
Depending where it sort of empties, if you like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Final question. We were just asked to confirm the website for the CCW, please. So I have just dropped that website into the chat. The link will take you to the website address for the water stressed, and you can see which areas are water stressed.
Just Googling CCW, it does come up almost straight away as the first reply. Consumer Council for Water, it's called. Yeah, it's quite useful, as you know, when you're first engaging with a client, say, oh, you're interested in this house, lovely. Have a double check on that. It's just it's in a water stressed area. You're going to get metered with a smart meter. So it's a really useful little asset. Yeah. Good.
Okay. That's all the questions I've got.
Yeah, so there's our details up on the screen, our website. It's got a postcode lookup service. You can put a postcode in and quickly get which water company is responsible, if known. It could be a NAV, of course. and all of our webinars are also there, and the details, contact details of all the DWSN members, which, as you can expect, you can see them on the bottom there. All the main water companies in England and Wales. Well, in England actually, Wales don't play.
Yeah.
I saw somebody with their hand up. Was that another question? So briefly.
No, they were just
but maybe in a thumbs up.
responding to the link.
Cool. Okay, folks, thanks again. We know it's really busy out there. We really do appreciate your time, as I said at the start, your half hour from you. I hope that's useful. Red flags, just remind you, billing status, and who is responsible for those assets. Have a look at the slides again if anything passed you by. And thanks once again.